Well, hi there, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Defrag in Progress here at Geektopia Island. I'm Cardwell. Today, I thought I'd show some love out there on the internet. Some love to an awesome, amazing game developer that's been around since like Xbox 360, and that is Supergiant Games. They bring such a nostalgic feel to a modern sense of gaming and storytelling that I think everyone should appreciate and everyone should love. They don't get the recognition that they deserve. Now, with the recent game that I've been blabbering about for the past few episodes, it has shown some light on them from a normal gamer's perspective. But whether it's a boy lost into a calamity, a woman who has lost her voice and her lover, a reader who's just lost in his way, and a son of a god who was really himself is lost and wondering what kind of person he really is. With that, on this episode of Defrag in Progress, about we love you, Supergiant Games.
We're supposed to start at the beginning. Ain't so simple with this one. Now here's a kid whose whole world got all twisted, leaving him stranded on a rock in the sky.
All right, of course, let's start at the beginning, where it all came to be, and that would be the game Bastion. It came out July 2011 on Xbox 360 with the Xbox Live Arcade initiative. I do believe it was like the very first game that kicked this whole Live Arcade thing, where they just showed off a bunch of indie games. But it was a small team. I do believe of 6 people. I know of one of the team members because he worked at GameSpot for a reviewer and writer and all this, and became the writer for Supergiant Games. And that's where I first heard about them and started following them and all this stuff. But of course, Bastion is about a protagonist called the Kid. He wakes up in the middle of a calamity, and which is, as you can tell, if you've never seen the game, it's beautiful, amazing, and the world develops underneath you as you walk, which is pretty badass. And your job, of course, is to collect these shards to recreate the Bastion, a living home for people and survivors that you can do. Now, this game has tons of various weapons that you can do, other survivors you can have, other skills you can have. You get a choice of 2 weapons, whichever ones you collect and pick, and really play out your play style that you want. And one of the biggest hooks, and kind of the first ones to really do this, is they had a narrator. And basically he just talked over every single thing you did. It never becomes annoying. It's a very strong, amazing voice. The fact that they recorded so much dialogue for the narrator to just comment on, I don't know. It was unique. It was beautiful. And something this small, I don't think I maybe paid $20 for this game, and it was worth every single penny. And of course, this will be the beginning of how they created all their games. This was the skeleton work, because of the different variations of weapons, the different difficulties that you can do by choosing what gods to upset will change how you factor. And it even had a multiple choice ending, which you either try to restart the calamity and try to make it better, or you just continue life from here on out and see how it goes. With this game, it reminded me of the old nostalgia feeling of games like Soul Blazer, Seeker of Mana, Seeker of Evermore, and Illusions of Gaia. These amazing SNES classics of just a big open world, amazing story, awesome combat, and spells and variety of your different attacks and such. This game was amazing. Played it several times for sure. Next, and probably the greatest one that everyone loves the most, is Transistor. It's considered the best game that Supergiant Game has ever made. Maybe not as much now since Hades is out, but it's still a solid, amazing, tight, difficult game. But it came out May 2014, only 3 years after Bastion, which is kind of amazing at what they were able to do such a limited time. I remember it didn't actually come on Xbox until later that I remember, but mostly just PlayStation 4. This is a game that actually made me save up and buy a PlayStation because I loved Bastion so much. I was like, yeah, gotta get this. Supergiant Games is amazing. But if you don't know what Transistor is, it stars a character named Red, who is a famous singer of a city called Cloudbank, and there's a high class rulers of the city called the Camerata, and what they were slowly starting to do was actually assassinate the greater influences of the city. You know, people who were influencing the people, and they didn't want to rebel and all this stuff. So Red was one of those people, and once they tried to kill her, her lover stepped into place, took the blunt of the weapon, which is called Transistor, the giant sword that you see mostly in all the art and such. And what happened was basically his genetic code got sucked into the sword, and he speaks through you through the whole game, because with this they stole her voice so she wouldn't be able to influence anymore. But you take the sword from your dead lover's corpse and start basically getting revenge. And sadly, with a Camerata, they control a basically robot force called the Process, which kind of gets out of hand throughout the game. What it is about this game, but Red's bond between lover and the strength that she has really, I don't know, gives me the feels playing this game. His words to her the whole time he's talking to her, the things the Process affects the Transistor that messes with him and her. And this game does not hold your hand. And that's one of the greatest things about Supergiant games, is they plop this game down with little to some context of what you're supposed to do. They give you the controls and they're like, do it. You can figure it out. You're a smart human being. You got this. And that's when I really realized that what they did in Transistor, because they have, as you can tell, hopefully through the footage I'm showing you, is these abilities called functions. As of course it's all, computer based and all this cute little keywords that they do. But with these functions are basically the souls of the influencers of the town, and you put them together in separate spots that you unlocked, like either passive slots that they do some sorts, or your main 4 attacks that you get. And then with those attacks you can add various functions to them with these things, and they mix and match however you want to play, or however ways you want to use your skills. As you can tell, they don't tell you, hey, this is what you should do. You're just like, all right, well, I guess I put these together and formulate a plan and see how it goes. And it gives you different spots where you can try out and do different various things. Now the footage that you're seeing here, of course, is every time you beat the game just gets harder and harder at the beginning, and like there's more crazy stuff that just keeps plopping down on yourself. So if you haven't played it, it's not going to be this insane at first, because you get to, they have a new game plus where you can keep all your functions and all your skills and your levels. Now, one of the greatest things that stands out of Transistor over mostly all of them is the vocal performance of Ashley Barrett. She's an amazing singer, and she plays the noises / voice of Red throughout the songs. Now, I'm not sure if I would consider it my favorite. I did at one point, but overall, I will guarantee you the ending will probably put a little tear to your eye, shed a tear. They have so much love in these games, and that's why I'm drawn to them. There's so much detail, so much love in these small little packages. It might not take you more than 6 hours to beat this game, but the experience that it gives you, the story that it tells, is one of the strongest ones you'll ever experience. And I hope that you'll give Transistor a try.
Stand forth, exiles. You stand upon the ridge of Gaul. You are gathered to conduct this rite. Let us see which one of you is more deserving. Nightwings, stand ready. Accusers, stand ready.
And the third game that came out on July 2017, also just 3 years later, around the same time, was Pyre. This is their most underrated game. When it came out, it got good reception. Most reviewers really sucked at it, and it kind of just died off. Like, it didn't get the fame that it did with Transistor, because Transistor was so strong. And of course, this was a weird fantasy sports game. And, some nerds really just hate sports. I personally do not care anymore about sports. I used to watch football growing up and all this fun stuff, but I didn't care about it because this was a different world and a fantasy world that they just beautifully created. So you are the reader thrown down from the Commonwealth because you're literate, and they don't care for that. They didn't like that you can read, so they toss you down to where the old pilgrims were. And that's where the amazing lore of the story comes from, because in the game, no one really speaks. They just make up Ghibli words. I'm sure I'll show you here, but it's like, blah, 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 right? Like old Banjo-Kazooie stuff. But since you are the reader in the game, you actually read out everything. And I thought that was, it was cute. It was genius. I enjoyed it because the other games are fully voiced, as you can tell. And why it was different on here is because, they need you. And as the reader, you're the only one that can read down below, and this group called the Nightwings comes and picks you up. And because you can read, they have the Book of Rights. And what the Book of Rights does is shows you how to get out of this purgatory place back into the Commonwealth. And to be able to do that is you follow the stars. Even in the song, when the stars align, it shows you where to go. A star slams to the ground and pyres show up between the teams. And that's when the sports comes through, because you have to dampen the other person's pyre with the star. And I thought that was cute. It was awesome. And every single battle arena is a corpse of a dead god, if I remember correctly, of what I was able to research. There's these fallen ancient beasts that the pilgrims from, years back came and destroyed. And I thought that was badass. Like, they're beautifully crafted. They're amazingly set up for each one. Now, of course, as you can tell, it's basically a soft core basketball game. You pick it up, only one person can move at a time. Once you have the ball, your aura goes away, and with that aura, you can destroy the other team to be able to push through and slam things into the pyre and win. Now, this game continues no matter if you lost or won. And that's how the story goes. And it creates a different facet of all the characters that you meet and how they do it. And if you win enough, then you get to go to the final rites. And from here, you pick one person out of your whole team, of the group of cast of characters that you pick up along the way, and you send them off to the Commonwealth if you win. If you lose, which you can lose at those moments, the other team gets to pick a person to send. Now, the reason why you want to win, of course, is because you get word that people are trying to make a plan in the Commonwealth to actually overthrow the leaders. And to be able to do that, you need to send your people much as possible. And this is where they do a little morale test, of course, like, hey, this old dog is dying. Why don't you let him have a life up there? And you're like, I kind of need to send my main general dude so we can start an army up there. Kind of conflict. A freeform story of amazing tells of different characters, different people, and how you level them up. And if you choose a favorite character and you think it's them to push up to the Commonwealth to help the revolution, you're going to lose your best player. And now you got to get used to your other players and keep going over and over and over and see if, you can be good enough with other people. Because each character has different abilities, way that they move, different auras around them. And once you get used to a certain one, it's kind of hard to, play the other games as well. Now, of course, along the travels, you can find the shopkeeper, buy relics for your guys to improve them and whatnot. It's so much fun, and I wish they made a multiplayer you can play multiplayer on the console, but nowadays I wonder if they can invest the money to make it where it's like an actual esports between 6 human players and tweak that of the rules and such to make it a fun, entertaining thing to watch. And I would love to see that. I would love to see them be able to explore this world and this universe more, because I think it's great. I think it's their best work in storytelling for sure. And As much as no one really gave this a chance, I hope y'all do.
Now at the end, as we bid farewell and return to the stars, we shall find a way home. We shall find our way home. We shall find our way
Of course, the last one, most recent one that came out, which I've talked over and over and over on different videos. So what I'm going to do is actually just sum up everything that makes them great. But Hades, the most recent one, was an early access of December of 2018, which I joined immediately, and it came out September 2020, which, as goes to show, every 3 years they bring out a beautiful masterpiece. I didn't really talk about the different facets of all of them bringing. Even I forgot on Transistor, but like Bastion was they're all isometric, but a action type game. Transistor is a strategic game overall because you can actually pause and freeze time and plan out your moves that you can do, because otherwise you can get overwhelmed by the process. And Pyre was a fantasy sports game, and now Hades is actually a roguelike, and it's the best roguelike. And I think that's what overall makes Supergiant so great, is that even though their art, their style, their gameplay is almost the same, they can do different genres of video games, and they can make the perfect version of those games. Kind of reminds me of old Blizzard, right? Before Activision bought them, they made RTS games and they made them perfect. They made the perfect MMO, because there was MMOs out there, but they grabbed everything they could and made it the best. They made the best ARPG, which was Diablo 2, and they just grab every facet, like Overwatch, great. Even though I'm done with it and I got bored, but it's a great first-person shooter. It's a team-based FPS, and that's what they did. And this is Supergiant at their prime, to be able to learn everything they do and put their passion and love towards their genre, their games, their music, their storytelling. Every detail is in there for a reason, and there's no fluff, there's no bullcrap. They just put their heart and soul into these games, and they make them the best that they can. And as you can tell, the skeletal structure of everything that they do between Bastion, Transistor, Pyre, Hades, they have level up systems. They have ways to have different forms of combat to go to your playstyle. They have difficulty settings built within the world. As in Bastion, you set up different gods. Transistor, you put in different, basically, viruses on the transistor itself and make the process a little harder. Pyre, you choose which constellations to make your team grow stronger faster, but benefits the other opponents, And to do that and still have a solid balance of however you want to play. However you like to do, they have every facet for you to do that and enjoy it. And also enjoy their storytelling, their music. And speaking of music, I didn't even talk about that. Mostly, Transistor has voiceover music, and Pyre has, I think, the best soundtrack out of all of them. They actually have minstrels in the game itself. That's part of the story, as you have this male minstrel who comes around and is with you the whole time playing his lute, and then once you get to the final right, there's another musician that I guess it kind of shows that they're ex-lovers, but they play together to play for the final right. It's a soundtrack that I've listened most of all. And even though Hades also has great, fantastic music, it's a little too much sometimes. And I don't know if I would actually listen to it by itself besides the game. But Pyre is the one I definitely choose. I know my words might not be as powerful that they need to be, but Supergiant Games needs the love that they so awfully put out to the world. They need love back to them. And I hope in some way, shape, or form, I hope I can help you find them, enjoy them, love them. They make games that are nostalgic to the past, but yet have all the modern sensibilities and love that, you know, what video games were made for in the first place. A bunch of nerds that love something, put their love into a project, and have something to give to all the other nerds to enjoy and play and love forever. And that's kind of rare nowadays. It's super rare. But yet they're still a shining force and a reminder that it doesn't all have to be drown military shooters or crappy MMOs out there. It can just be a simple game that you can love and enjoy. And it doesn't have to last 50 to 60 hours. They make games that you come back and want to play anyway. And back in the day, that's what we had to do, you know, replay games over and over because that's what we had. And we enjoyed it. And they make games where you can do that and still love it over and over. Like Hades, it still hasn't ended. Like, you beat the game, see the credits, and it still continues. Pyre's the only one that I haven't replayed, only because I don't know if my story at the end of it was perfect enough where I didn't need a restart. Transistor, I can replay that constantly. I've beat it on 4 different consoles. And hopefully in 3 years, we get to see another genre that you can master and make beautiful and let us fall in love with. Well, there you have it, folks. That was my shining love to Supergiant Games. Hopefully I'm able to inspire you to maybe even check them out, buy one of their games, even on Steam sales. You know, they come across pretty cheap once in a while for them, so, you know, keep a lookout for that. If anything, I know I've bought them on multiple consoles, the Switch, PlayStation, computer, just everything. They're amazing, and I will support them all the way in every project they can ever do. They're one of the shining last great video game companies out there. With that, hopefully you enjoyed your stay here at Geektopia Island, and you have a good day. Goodbye.
Also, guys, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to our channel, and then hit that bell for any future notifications that you have for our videos.
And we go ahead and give a big thank you to our fans for over the years, especially our Mythic and Above Patreon followers.
Thank you, Ryan.
With that, we love you. Thank you for your support.